Hello, and welcome back to the Futurism at JHU podcast. My name's Nicholas. I'm joined here with Max.
Hello.
Ricardo.
What's up?
And John.
How's it going?
And today's topic is time, gravity, and the universe. So I'm a neuroscience major, so I mostly study the brain. And so all this physics and quantum stuff, I'm just like, it goes over my head. So one of you guys needs to explain to me, what the heck is time? How does gravity affect time? And I guess, what does it mean to experience time?
I feel like so much of that actually, no, I know I said I wasn't going to jump into this, but I actually feel like so much of what is time is actually kind of in the mind, right? Because perception of time is different than time itself, right? Because time is considered the fourth dimension. So if you think of the way that I sort of like to think about time as being the fourth dimension is first imagine a single point. That's I guess 0 dimensions. And then your first dimension would be a line. Second dimension is a plane. Third dimension is a cube. And then the fourth dimension is watching that cube move through time, right? So it's almost like you have a picture of this. It's like you have this cube that's in 3D on film frames. And those film frames are then time. It's kind of like you're starting over on the first dimension again.
It's called a tesseract, by the way.
Exactly.
If anybody's
Yes.
curious.
Like Loki?
Yeah, sort of. Well, not
Kinda,
at all, but
yeah.
it's like a fourth dimensional cube tesseract.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. Go look it up. It's
Damn.
pretty trippy. You can look up videos of a tesseract on YouTube and how it behaves. But so that's kind of a very basic physics definition of time. I'm sort of curious, what is our perception of time compared to physics definition of time?
Well, I mean, it's kind of like you mentioned, it's like a human-centric thing. So
That's
got the saliva going. No,
Love
but
it.
it's a human-centric thing, so we can't really focus on its objective, I guess, definition, because I think all science is from a human-centric point of view, right?
You good?
Sorry, I'm over here dying.
Yeah, no, it's the saliva. We're still trying to work stuff out. I
Yeah,
guess.
so
But,
for our listeners, we're recording without masks, and so you're hearing every bit of saliva, so we apologize. If you like ASMR, perfect.
Clip
But
it,
yeah,
please.
maybe
For your own
maybe I'll
sakes.
just talk through the mask. But
Love that for us.
but I kind of want to briefly mention where this conversation started, and it's funny that you mentioned Loki, because we originally started talking about it because of Doctor Strange.
Oh, yeah, the whole
Yeah, the
time
multiverse of
dimension,
madness.
multiverse.
The
theory.
film where they discuss the multiverse, and I think even in the show they discuss it, and I think it really opened the door culturally.
I'm sorry, I'm just
It's all good. You okay?
I'm literally crying from laughter.
I think it opened the door culturally.
Oh my gosh, I
for,
feel like we have to start over.
I mean, we don't have to. This is
This is pretty funny.
Sure.
This is real.
Sure, that's true. It's
This is the-
unfiltered.
This could be like a
Unfiltered.
blooper. This could
All
be a
good.
blooper podcast.
Yeah,
Sure.
maybe we can
All
do a
good.
part 2 where
Where we further explain
Yeah.
our ideas.
We could literally just have a podcast of bloopers.
That's
This
all
could be
good.
in it.
I'm chill with that.
But we talked about Multiverse of Madness and Loki and stuff, and basically those films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in general being accessible to so many people has opened the door culturally for us to explore the multiverse, and we see that now in we saw a trailer for a film, the A24 film Everything Everywhere at the same time
All
or
at the
something.
same time, yeah.
Oh yeah, with the actress from Crazy Rich Asians.
Yeah, and
She's a good
it's a
actress.
really intriguing movie, and I would venture to say that movie would have never been made if it wasn't for the efforts of the MCU to explain what the multiverse is in sort of a very...
That's a good idea.
digestible
They
way.
they use their platform to destigmatize talking. Marvel used to be pretty fun, and now it's Eternals,
Yeah.
literally the whole universe, and
Celestials,
Thanos, Celestials,
crazy...
it's gone from Iron Man, which is pretty you can
grounded in reality.
you can
Yeah, it's a
envision
pretty
that.
Right, yeah.
straightforward.
Very ground in reality.
I love how now we're
Afghanistan.
considering Iron Man to be grounded in reality
Yeah,
in
I mean-
comparison to these other
I mean, in
films.
comparison to
Right.
Celestials,
It's a
I mean,
post
all relative.
9/11 critique, isn't it?
What?
A what?
I've never
Iron Man.
heard this.
It's like a
Wait, what?
it's like a post 9/11 Afghan war sort of.
Oh, I see what you
that-
mean. Yeah.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
and that was kind of the value of it at the time, and then it spawned all of this. And I guess now they're continuing to use that platform to explain bigger ideas. And then we got into this conversation basically about what was it? Oh yeah, it was like if time and space, which I guess is just space because time is the fourth spatial dimension, if those are truly infinite, then everything that could possibly happen, has happened, will happen, and is happening right now. If time and space are truly infinite.
Yeah.
Because what string theory tells us is that the Big Bang was kind of like a spontaneous reaction and technical. What is this?
Wait,
What
what's
is this
happening?
sorcery?
I'm muting my mic so they don't.
Oh no, you can turn on your mic. I'm pretty sure that's actually. I think I'm.
Oh, was that you muted?
I don't know. It's all good. No worries.
I'm sorry. I don't know why.
I'll chill.
I'm having like diaphragm contractions.
It's because you're like. It's because we're recording and you're not
Uncontrollable.
supposed to laugh.
Right.
You
That's
know.
what I'm saying. It's like it's so awkward. It's like look at this. Like if somebody walked in and saw this, they'd be like, "Well, what you guys doing?"
Exactly.
Yeah, what does this club even do?
This is why we don't do this in public, by the way.
Yeah,
But
love that for us.
oh yeah, we were talking about time.
Oh right,
Yes,
yeah.
the initial
So
conversation.
that
we're
basically
talking about the existence of all the universe and like how we exist.
pop culture kind of led us down this road of thinking, and we can even see that in especially film. We were talking about Interstellar, that explores that very concept of time as a fourth spatial dimension, and you see that at the climax of the movie when everything kind of comes together. Arrival is another one.
I kind of want to
We're
go
discussing.
back though to this idea of like a predetermined destiny, right? But perhaps destiny isn't the right word, but
You
just
mean like
everything's-
free will?
Well, sort of, but I mean the idea that I mean I guess it is sort of the idea of free will is rooted in all time existing simultaneously, but I'm just more sort of curious about the idea of all time existing simultaneously, not necessarily like whether we have agency, things like that, but just the idea that like all time is simultaneous and everything that has happened has already happened and that
Whoa. Now it's gone too far.
Right.
Wait, what?
Well, so
How is
John
that
sort
possible?
of mentioned earlier that like, so think about, you know how we had sort of did this sort of the exercise where we zoomed out, starting at the first dimension, then second, third, fourth, and then
Yeah.
went to the fourth. Because we're talking about time as being a fourth dimension, the line extends infinitely in
Infinitely.
both directions, implying that everything is sort of already, like everything that will happen has already happened, and everything that sort of did happen has already happened, right? Like the present is sort of like, in some sense, a construct that we make up.
Yeah, to interpret, or because we're only three-dimensional beings, and
Well, in a way, we're fourth dimensional. I think we
we ride the line. Like we're
Yeah.
limited by the fourth dimension, I would say.
we don't have manipulation over it the way that we do the third dimension.
We're just
Yeah.
along for the ride.
I mean, the fact is that like the dimensions kind of exist around us at all times. It's just we're not physically capable of perceiving them. So think about it this way, like a rock is able to perceive, like a rock exists in the same universe as we do, but I would consider a rock to be exclusively a three-dimensional object because it has no way to perceive time. Humans have a nervous system which allow us to perceive time because it pulses on, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like your nervous system sort of pulses on and off in discrete values, which then like allows us to sort of experience moments in time. Is that kind of more or less like in the ballpark of how things work?
Yeah, I guess this goes to the point of how we experience time linearly. I mean, I'm still going back to your point of everything that will happen has happened. So you're telling me an hour from now when I don't know, meeting with the
predetermined.
professor, that's already happened?
Well, I mean,
It-
Or you're saying it's predetermined? Is that a different? Because you said
I mean,
it's really complicated because we can never understand truly unless we like evolve to a fourth dimension.
because we'd have to like observe ourselves and our perception, which is impossible because we're biased by our own perception of the universe.
Yeah, we have limits as humans. It's like a, you know, everybody knows it. Everybody likes to say it. It's like we're only human. It's true. We have limits. We can't truly interpret the fourth dimension as a fourth dimensional being would. I don't know if you ever heard the going back to your exercise, uh, the concept of like if there were two dimensional beings and um, we sort of moved through their dimension, I guess, or inserted something in their dimension. Like if we inserted a cube in their dimension, they would see a square. And if we inserted a circle or a sphere in their dimension, they would see a circle. So, and that's just how they would interpret things. So we kind of interpret time as a line, even though it's not like that.
It's not exclusively like that, yeah.
I mean, in the objective truth of the universe that we can never know, it's our understanding that time is sort of like the fourth spatial dimension.
wait, but it is a line though, but it's just in both directions.
To
Is that-
us, it's a line.
To us, it appears as a line. To another being, time could be a two-dimensional grid or even a cube.
It could be a circle for all we know. For all we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they could completely and fully occupy, that those four dimensions like we occupy the three dimensions, and they can have agency over it, you know. So, going back to your point about meeting with the professor in an hour, to us, it's like it's going to happen. You sort of, made that plan, and it's going to happen in the future. But to somebody, and I think Interstellar has a lot of artistic value for depicting this. It's sort of like all of these scenarios occurring at once is the best way that we can understand it. So, like, let's say I'm a fourth dimensional being and I'm occupying this room and I'm seeing this is happening right now. I can go and walk over to a different part of the universe I inhabit and see you meeting with your professor. And that action of me walking over to a different part of that universe would not take time to do in the way that we understand it.
Wait,
It's
what?
Like
It's so
the
hard to,
three-dimensional
like-
moment,
yeah.
the three-dimensional movement would happen instantaneously, basically.
But this is not like the multiverse theory, or is it?
It sort of relates because
Yeah.
it demands the if time and space are truly infinite, right? Which for all we know they could be, then there are infinite universes that sort of are out of our field of view, but they're all happening, and they could be happening unimaginably far away, but it's not infinitely far away. It's not on a different plane of existence, I guess you could say. So when you interpret time as a fourth dimension, you kind of enhance that thought of everything that could happen is happening or has happened or will happen, but you kind of concede it into everything that could happen is happening. And that even that is a human-centric perspective, because the words
Yeah.
is
I was just gonna say, like,
happening.
Yeah, like, so much of our vocabulary I've noticed in this conversation is so based in the human perspective of thinking of time as being linear, right? And it just sort of has made me realize how impossible it is to kind of wrap our head around it, because there are language barriers, right? Like, our entire language, when talking about time, is centered around will happen, has happened, or is happening, right? And these are just words that we can't really use when talking about time as quote abstractly as we are. It's just kind of wild. like here like trying to think about time as being not time but time.
Yeah, it would really take a true human like rebirth almost
Yeah.
to fully comprehend it. Which is why like we talked about it last week and it came up again. It's like for someone like you, Nick, you can't understand it because it goes against like everything. But I think for me it's like I've seen so many things. It's like I don't doubt it. I don't understand it either. I'm not claiming to be able to explain it, but like you, the skeptic in you, is going over and being like, wait a minute, what is this?
Yeah, no, you're right. Like, it goes against all of the things I've learned, and maybe just you need like a higher level of thinking to understand it. Like,
I think like a higher level of consciousness,
even yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like I feel like having a higher level of thinking, you're still to imply a higher level of thinking implies that you're still thinking as a human being, right? In 3 dimensions. Now, or I guess in 4 dimensions, 4 dimensions as we know it and perceive it. And what I sort of wonder is if we observe, say, the brain enough, and we observe sort of how living beings process information, if we can then use the math behind quantum physics to sort of develop a prototype of a being that would be able to, or like a nervous system that would be able to process 4 dimensions.
And I mean, this idea, what you just said, and maybe our listeners will make this connection. It's Dr. Manhattan. It's Watchman's Dr. Manhattan, who can occupy anywhere in the 3D space, but interprets time as another dimension that he can occupy. So he can be present in a moment to us. We can see him as a 3D figure, but he's present in every moment in some ways.
so he's really the most OP.
Yeah, no, he's crazy.
He's more OP than Thanos. It sounds like.
He's way stronger than Thanos. He's way stronger than Superman.
Wait, does he exist in the same universe, like
Yeah.
cinematic universe as Thanos?
No. He's a. I think DC owns him.
See DC. Oh,
So like they did a story called
dang.
Doomsday Clock, and it was revolving around a mystery regarding Dr. Manhattan and Superman. It's an interesting story, but this concept, the point of me mentioning this is that this concept has been around for a long time in at least comic books. Like we've been exploring the idea of time as a fourth dimension, um, however limited that may be, because you are limited to what you can put on a page. But we have been exploring sort of that idea of a being that can interpret things way beyond us, how powerful that being would be. Which kind of, it reminded me of a conversation we had last week. We kind of dipped our toe into it a little. We didn't focus on it, but it was about machines. It was like, does a computer interpret time the same way that we do? Because I mean, from what I've seen, a computer just kind of like ticks. Like it doesn't understand the time that it displays. It just kind of knows when to change the numbers, and it's only limited by the speed at which the information can travel, which is the speed of light. So, do you think that machines are sort of the key to cracking that barrier?
I think, well, at least from what I know, since I'm taking the computer system fundamentals class, like one of the things that we talk about when we're talking about like performance of programs, it's like clocks per cycle. So there are specific time barriers like for processors, for computers, even though they can transfer information super fast, the ability for a computer to perform a certain type of computation, right? There are many of, right, in different computer programs. That's what it takes the time to run. Basically, depending on the processor that you have, depending on the architecture, a processor that was made 5 years ago is going to have less clocks per cycle than a newer processor. So at the very least, the time it takes to run something, its perceived time will be slower for an older processor than a newer one. So if anything, we could like base our understanding of like how a computer would interpret time. And if we take that with the consideration of like programs running on a computer, then as technology gets better, they get faster. I guess they perceive time quicker or
But
snappier.
it's like you would have to use it as a ratio, right? Like
Yeah.
compared to what? Like faster compared to
To like a processor that was made 5 years ago.
right. Well, it would actually I feel like a faster processor experiences time slower than a slower processor,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because everything appears. If this processor were a person, it would appear as if everything were moving slower.
Yeah. Because everything is going by so fast. Yeah.
Kind of a little bit on topic, but very off topic. I've noticed that sometimes when I'm listening to music, a piece of music will seem substantially faster than when I listen to it maybe later that night as I'm going to sleep. So I sort of wonder if the way that I process like if the way that I process information can fluctuate and the speed at which I process information fluctuates. And if that changes my perception of time. I'm pretty sure that's a thing.
Yeah, one of the things that I was gonna mention is like you hear it all the time with like sports specifically, but like the thing of like being in the zone, right?
Yeah.
Perceiving things at a rate which normally you wouldn't, but just because you're in a specific spot, you're able to. If you talk to enough people that do sport, even here at Hopkins, you'd probably hear it, right? Maybe they're playing a game of soccer or volleyball or something. When they make a crucial decision, which has to be fast, which has to be accurate, for a lot of people, they'll perceive that moment slower than any other because they'll hyper focus on it, where everything else slows down and they're just focusing on moving their body in a certain way or making a certain decision. Whereas the rest of the game feels completely normal, right? So I think yes, and I've also sort of experienced that with like skateboarding. When you're doing a trick specifically, the probability of you falling and getting injured is really high. So whenever you're doing a trick, sometimes you get in the zone specifically whenever you're up in the air and you have to, that quick motion to get and land back on your feet. So I've definitely felt that, and I definitely feel like that's a thing. Like super 100%.
I've heard about it too in survival situations in particular, right? Like if you're in a moment where you have to make a life or death choice, same sort of thing. Your body sort of starts to perceive time differently. So sort of tying it back into, everything, time is the way that we perceive time is entirely in our brain. And it's dark up here.
Right.
Like it's just information that we're being input and then output to our consciousness, I guess, ? I don't know.
Yeah, so
that's beyond me.
right. So I guess a way to like maybe tie it into something that could be done in the future with this perception of time that we're talking about could be the ability of us being able to perceive more time where there isn't as much. So maybe in video games or stuff like that. Maybe you could play an hour of video games in 10 minutes.
Yeah, somehow like do some sort of biohack to like change how much time you're perceiving.
Yeah, or like be able to study more in less time.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Like a chamber of time.
I could get on board with that.
Right? So maybe
Me
instead
too.
of cramming the night before, you have instead of I don't know what's
take
like
a pill
cramming
or
like
something.
5 hours, 6 hours or whatever the night before. Maybe now it turns from 6 to maybe like 30 hours.
Damn. That's genius.
That would be great.
If you can get that to work, you'll be a trillionaire. The world's first trillionaire.
Right? Exactly. Like
100%.
how many college students would not want that?
It would be the next caffeine.
Exactly.
Like straight up, it would be because we're all
It'd be more than caffeine.
like everybody you see around drinking coffee is like they're addicted to caffeine.
Yeah.
like it or not, and that's just the way it is. That's sort of the work culture. But imagine a whole new series of drugs that your perception of time slows down, whereas to like the normal person you're just going super fast reading and interpreting things, and if you're studying I don't know how much it would work for something like games where it's like an external thing.
Right.
You'd have to. I feel like you could switch a setting on a game then, but it would have to be calibrated to you
Right.
specifically. So
Maybe you have the 2 times pill, so you just put the 2 times button on the
Yeah.
game.
Yeah, I mean that would be, I think that's the first step to what we were talking about before, manipulation of the fourth dimension. We're sort of limited by it, and maybe inventing some sort of biological hack, like you put it, to do this kind of thing is sort of exercising dominance over this next dimension, and that could very well, and I mean this is so esoteric, but that could very well signal the next step in human evolution, where we become higher dimensional beings like we see in movies and comics all the time.
Yeah, for sure. So, to our listeners out there, if you come up with this invention before Ricardo does,
Right.
let us know.
you
Well,
owe him royalties.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I gave you this idea.
You owe Ricardo 50% royalties just for the idea.
At least.
At least.
At the very least, exactly.
But yeah, anyways, hope you enjoyed this topic. My mind is blown. I still don't understand it. I'm sorry.
No
But
need to be sorry.
but
all
it's
good.
like it's very cool ideas. Like it's nice to expand my brain outside of the brain.
There's
Or
so much
outside of
more
the
to
side of the
say.
brain. No,
about
there
this,
is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We could talk about other shows, how
Yeah.
they perceive time, like the one I was talking to you about.
Yeah. And there's
So-
also like Arrival, Tenet. Like those are some of my favorite movies too. And I don't understand it, but the action is sick.
So
And, like,
exciting.
yeah. So yeah, highly recommend all of our listeners out there watch those movies. Like blow your mind. And yeah, so hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.
See
See
ya.
ya.